We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It is Wednesday. Last night was Super Tuesday. A lot of activity with elections in some 16 or 17 states. Kind of went pretty much like you'd expect. Joe Biden won all his races handily. Nobody got close, not even the uncommitted. Donald Trump won most of his races, but here's the real news: he didn't win all the races. He won most of them. But Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump in Vermont by about 5%, maybe 3,000, 3,500 votes. So that's got to kind of stick in Donald Trump's craw. He's got plenty of things to be worried and upset about. I'm sure this is going to piss him off. We'll see if Nikki Haley drops out at this point. I mean, theoretically, she should. She's going to have a hard time getting more money, but if she does, she might try to stick it out. Talking to a friend of mine earlier today, wondering why she's sticking it out. And there's only one possible reason, and that is because she's waiting for something to happen to Donald Trump, whether he keel over, go to jail, or whatever the fuck happens. That's what she's waiting for. And we'll see if that occurs. We'll see if that's something that actually happens. I know some people have said that Donald Trump is kind of like a cockroach. No matter how bad it gets for him, he's going to see it through, be the nominee, and run in November. And that's possible. I just don't understand how a guy that's 78 years old, that has that much pressure on his head and already has some mental illness and some physical problems, makes it that far. But it's all speculation. I have no inside track, and we'll just have to wait and see what happens. Oh, by the way, Christian Cinema has decided to not run for reelection. Ruben Gallegos will be the Democratic nominee, and he has an excellent chance of winning because guess who he's running against? Carrie Lake. Yeah, that is probably the most sorry politician, second only to Donald Trump, in America today. She has no chance of winning that, and we'll see what happens with her. But we should be able to get a real Democrat in office at this point, which would be nice. It'll help us, depending on how many people we get in the Senate. I'm hoping we can expand the majority in the Senate. Some people have said to me, I think we're going to lose the majority. I don't see how that's going to happen. I mean, how does any Republican do well in this day and age with all the negativity surrounding them? But again, we'll see what happens. So Super Tuesday is behind us. Kind of went pretty much like we'd expected. But we'll now wait and see what Nikki Haley has to say, whether there'll be even a reason to have any more primaries. All right. We have some emails. First one comes to us from Catherine. And actually, this was sent on the podcast website. It wasn't an email. It says, Mike, please listen to Sunday's entry of Tom Hartman podcast. It's 7.5 minutes from 11:30 mark to the 17-minute mark about how to talk to a Republican about Trump. He's making them violate norms. Please. Now, she's real anxious for me to listen to that. I haven't as yet. I'm not even really familiar with Tom Hartman's podcast, but Catherine, I will check it out. And I wanted to mention it on the air in case some of the folks in the audience wanted to check it out too. No doubt you wanted to get it out in the ether so other people could experience it. Sounds like his explanation was good. And for those of us that find themselves in positions where they have to talk to Trumplefucks, might be very valuable. So, Catherine, thank you. All right, the next email says, Hello, Mike. While listening to your podcast this morning, the subject of what Maddie talked about with Trump and his sixth sense of using his hands to kind of hypnotize people by using the actions of his hands. I've used this technique called EMDR with a trained therapist to help me with some PTSD issues and trauma. When used correctly, it helped me tremendously and does to some degree today. There are a couple of facts about this type of therapy. This is always done one-on-one, not to a crowd. It's individual healing. Two, it's a type of regression therapy along with guided questioning and intense listening and unloading of traumatic memories. Let's face it, Trump idiots aren't smart enough to even understand EMDR, let alone follow his hands longer than 2 seconds. Dirty Diaper Donny isn't smart enough to understand EMDR and his own past traumas. We are seeing his past shitty childhood unraveling before our own eyes. I thought I'd share some light on this to our community here. I also sent you some articles on what is going on with the bullying and hatred towards transgender people and students here in Utah. I'm wondering if you had a chance to read those and was wondering what your thoughts are on them. Faithfully, fellow boomer and a listener since day one, Gordy. I haven't read them, Gordy, but I will. Um, it's always good to get the extra information from you folks. I can't see everything. I can't even read anything. So by all means, if you read something and want me to read it, I'll do my best to do that. But if you want to expound on it, you have just as much authority to talk about the issues here as I do, whether it be an email or whether you be on the show live or taped or whatever the fuck it is. The most important thing is we get the information out, and I think you know by now that we have great guests on the show, and they're all listeners. And because we have great listeners and great guests, we all learn a lot, including me. And I'm always open to learning more. All right, the next email says, "Hey, Boomer, I'm still here and loving your show as always. We all know that if the Supreme Court gives Trump the immunity while he was president that he wants, that would give Joe Biden the same immunity. What I don't hear anyone talking about is the Bush v. Gore decision, where they said that the decision can only be applied once this time. That is, that this decision cannot be used as a precedent. I remember that. What's stopping them from doing that again?" Good point. I think if something like that would happen, there would be an uproar. There would be a revolt. I've told you this before. You know, everybody's worried about what if Donald Trump goes to jail and there's a civil war. I don't think that's going to happen. But there are enough people afraid of Donald Trump, and the prospect of him becoming president. When people become afraid, they tend to be irrational. Not everybody, of course, not most people, of course, but there will be some. And it's going to cause all kinds of problems. I don't know that they can guarantee that it's not a precedent. I mean, it comes from the Supreme Court. I remember the story about this. I don't know enough about it to really expound on it, but you make a good point and something to think about. That said, I don't think there's any way they're going to give him total immunity. You can't really do that in this situation, that it's only in this case. We're not talking about a specific situation. We're talking about a president of the United States. You can't say this president has more authority or more freedom than another president. That just doesn't float. I don't think that's something we have to worry about at this point. I just think they're going to have to come out and say, no, he doesn't have immunity. I think the reason they're hearing it because, like I said yesterday, I think that they're expecting it to come from every jurisdiction that Donald Trump's been indicted in. That means they're going to have to do it over and over and over again. And I think they just want to put the final nail in the coffin here and make it clear that Donald Trump is not immune, and then we can move on. What you're saying, I get it. I don't know. I just don't see it happening in this case. That would just cause an outrage to a Supreme Court that's already in trouble. All right, the next one. Rational Boomer. Recently, you who were discussing what the first thing the Democrats should do once the election was won and the Democrats win the House, Senate, and the presidency, and is then that we should start pushing for the three most urgent things we need our representatives to pass to begin the process of putting our country back together and on the right path. I remember you saying the first thing that we need to do is make the details of Roe v. Wade into law for all 50 states. That's right, codify it. It is my humble opinion that the reversal of the Citizens United decision by the Supreme Court is needs to be included in this list. Yeah, I'll agree with you. I didn't bring that one up, and you're right. That should be in there too. On January 21st, 2010, the Supreme Court issued a ruling in Citizens United versus Federal Elections Commission, overruling an earlier decision that allowed prohibitions on independent expenditures by corporations in our election. This decision was the final nail in a coffin for our democracy. I personally believe that we need to definitively end the practice of legalized bribery by the ultra rich and large corporations on our political institutions and elections. This decision gave the richest Americans a greater and louder voice than us ordinary citizens and allowed them to use that voice with their money to dictate what our laws will and will not be. The billionaires and others of the ruling class mostly buy off the leaders of the Republican Party to sponsor the bills they want. Don't get me wrong, Democrats are up for sale too, but it's usually the Republicans who are the driving force behind these campaigns. If we have the blue wave that you predict, the Democrats will be the most open to beginning the development of such laws. I also do not think that we have to wait until the election is won to begin our push. I think that we should ask our family members and neighbors to contact their Democratic representatives to push for all of the laws we want immediately, especially this law and the Roe v. Wade law, which already have a very large agreement among Democrats. The Democratic politicians need to start the conversations and write the proposed laws that they know the Republicans will object to and fight against them. These efforts will help educate and enrage the electorate, and they will see a new Democratic Party who's willing to fight, and it will make the blue wave even bigger. What do you think, Boris? I agree. I agree. I think it's important to keep the noise going, keep the narrative going, keep talking about all the problems we have, not only to win the election, but to set up some progress to be made after the election. I've told you before, one of my fears is if the Democrats do get a clean sweep in the House and the Senate and the presidency, they have an opportunity to do all the things they've been talking about for the last 7 years. But I know politicians, and politicians could conceivably say, well, we made it. We got all the power. Now we can relax and not be so urgent about certain things. I have no way to know whether or not they would do that. But I think when we're talking about politicians, it's certainly possible. So I agree with everything you said there, Boris. We do need to be talking about Citizens United. We do need to get rid of that motherfucking thing. And we need the Democrats to start talking about it, to carry the narrative and keep the noise up going into the election. So there's that education of the people of this country after the election is completed. I agree with you wholeheartedly. All right. The next one says, hi, Boomer. Don't hate me because I'm beautiful. An old commercial that only old guys and old gals would remember. I just voted for Nikki Haley in the Virginia primary. Here you can walk in and pick up whichever ballot you want, regardless of party registration. There was no line, no canvassing, and an old friend was working one of the desks, so it was very pleasant. I want Nikki to stay in as long as possible, hopefully right up until the convention. It ain't much, but it was all I could do today for the cause. Best Garage Door Jeff. P.S. I won't be funny if by the time you read this, Nikki has already announced that she's quitting. Yeah, no, she hasn't announced that as yet. We're still talking about midnight going into Wednesday morning. She hasn't said she's going to quit yet, but who knows? By the time somebody hears this podcast, she might very well have. But I get what you're saying. Yeah, let's keep Nikki in as long as we can to be a flying the ointment to Donald Trump so he can focus on Nikki Haley and not Joe Biden. All right. Next one says, Hi, Mike. State of the Union is on Thursday night, while President Biden will be talking about the strong economy, low unemployment, lower inflation, protecting Medicare and Social Security, bringing manufacturing jobs back, and giving tax cut to the middle class. Motherfucker Republicans will be busy shouting insults and disrespect throughout the speech to get TV coverage. Pieces of shit such as Lauren Boebert, fucking Marjorie Taylor Greene, and asshole Matt Gaetz, and others will be pushing each other out of the way to shout insults the loudest so that the TV would show them. Of course, if President Biden declares massive tax cuts for billionaires, then instead of insults, it would be receiving a 10-minute long standing ovation from Republicans. They better dream on because that is not going to happen under Joe Biden. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, if he did offer up those tax cuts for rich people, then the Republicans would probably still boo him. I mean, it's like the border bill. We gave them exactly what they wanted, but they booed him and they shut it down because they were afraid it was going to make Joe Biden look good. They're not about legislating. They're not about governing. They're about trying to win elections and then hold on to those seats as long as they can so they can do whatever the fuck they want. Unfortunately, what they want to do has nothing to do with their job or doing anything for the people in this country. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I'll be honest with you. Knowing how Republicans are, if we get people from the peanut gallery, another elderly reference, um, I think more than anything, they'll look embarrassing. They'll end up being embarrassed by it. I don't know how Joe Biden should handle it, but they should have video and sound on all these people that would stand up and yell and scream. That would give some people reason to sympathize with Joe Biden and realize how childlike and foolish these fucks are. Goes on to say, I remember State of the Union used to be a very peaceful and respectful, and members contained themselves. But around 10, 12 years ago, during President Obama's speech, an ugly motherfucker Republican animal shouted toward President, You lie. From that point on, things during State of the Union got fucked up. Republicans are 100% responsible for this poisonous political atmosphere in our country. Rush Limbaugh and Newt Gingrich laid the foundation for everything bad that's going on in our politics. Fuck these motherfuckers. One is dead, the other one, we'd love to read his obituary, as Old Soul would say. Thank you again for everything you do. Sincerely, Joe. Thank you, Joe. Thanks for the heads up about this Thursday's State of the Union. Yeah, it will be interesting to see what the Republicans do. They've already got some woman that's going to give a response to the State of the Union. But it's like everything they do, it's a joke. They either have to lie or distract, divert, delay, whatever the fuck they do. It's not going to work. I mean, the facts are the facts. The economy is the economy. Unemployment is what the unemployment is. You can argue and call names all you want, but you can't change the facts. All right, the next one comes from Gary. He says, Hey, Mike, I don't necessarily agree with you that Trump won't be the nominee, but I'll predict he won't debate Biden. It's probably a good bet. His aphasia will be acting up and he won't be asked fluff questions. And not to mention, Biden will be ready for his dog and pony show. I just need to see his broke ass defeated and House flip back. Keep doing what you're doing because I need the voice of reason to drown out the Mishigas. Not sure what that is. Spelled Mishegas. Oh, okay. He explains. Mishigas. That's Yiddish for insanity. Peace, Gary from Massachusetts. Thank you, Gary. I appreciate it. All right, the next one says, "Hi, Mike. Love what you do and listen every day. Looks like Trumpster won't be spending much time on the golf course. Yeah, that's going to kill him. He's not going to be able to go to the golf course because he's going to be sitting in fucking court on trial. Between the upcoming days in courts and his silly rallies for his ass clown followers, there just won't be time. After suffering watching all things Trump for the last 8 years or so, I'm enjoying his downfall. Day by day, I believe justice will be served. Lawrence." I do too. I mean, I don't know how it can't be served. As I said, in the upcoming criminal trial in the Manhattan District of New York, he's got 34 felony charges against him. Um, that's probably going to what the fuck was I saying? I'm looking ahead here on the emails. Now I'm getting lost. Sorry about that. Anyway, we we know that the downfall is coming. He can't go through 34 charges and not get convicted of some of them. That's inevitable. He's going to get convicted, and then that's when shit starts to fall apart. All right, now the next one comes from Maddie, and it's kind of on the same topic that the other emailer sent. "Mike, I was listening today and I heard about my thoughts on Trump's hand movements in relation to EMDR. I wanted to say that I do not think that he is consciously trying to hypnotize people and believe that he just talks with his hands like many people do. My observation was just that those movements are very similar to what is done during EMDR and other forms of placing someone into a mentally vulnerable place and open to suggestions. Also, our vision and instincts are drawn to the movements and tracking those movements, so his hand movements would be naturally where many people would focus their visual attention. This was only an observation for potentially why devoted uh, most devoted followers really seem like they're hypnotized and were once normally intelligent and able to hold a rational conversation. Also, it has been proven that there are segments of the population who are highly vulnerable to suggestions, especially from a person that they hold in a position of authority, likely high religious people and conspiracy nuts. Can't wait to be on again, Maddie. Well, Maddie, you know you're welcome anytime. Just let me know, and we've got a lot of people wanting to come on the show, and that's a great thing. It's sometimes easier and sometimes harder to get people fitted into the show. But Maddie, people love you out here. So if you want to come on, let me know and we'll get it set up one way or another. All right. Next email comes from Jin. He says, "Hi, Mike. It's been a while since I emailed you. I hope you and your family, especially your princess, aka granddaughter, are doing well. Jen, I got to clarify something for you, something I learned just a bit ago. You refer to my granddaughter as a princess, and I appreciate the affectionate compliment. But I called her a princess recently, and she looked at me and she goes, 'Grandpa, I am not a princess. I am Junie.' I said, 'Okay, honey, you're not a princess.' And then she walked away and she looked back at me and she goes, 'I'm Super Junie.' I go, 'Okay.' Yeah, I don't know if she's going to be the princess type. She can be sometimes, but she's kind of in your face, a little more aggressive and a little more assertive than most princesses. So I'll pass on the kind words. I won't use the word princess because it'll just piss her off. Super Tuesday turned out to be a fucking disaster for Dean Phillips. Those of you that don't know who Dean Phillips is, he is a representative in the House. He happens to represent the district that I live in. He is my representative. He's the one that's going primary to try to beat Joe Biden and just makes a fool out of himself. He's nobody from nowhere, and I don't even know what he's ever done when he's been in the House of Representatives. So I don't like the guy. And apparently Jen doesn't either. He says this guy has no shame and still refuses to give up, even though Biden smashes him the entire night. From what I see, this is going to be a rematch of 2020. Oh my fucking God. Mike, I need your wisdom and advice on how to navigate this crazy presidential election. Thank you, Jen. Well, Jen, as I've said, I'm not so certain that Donald Trump will be able to hold up long enough to run for president in November, be the nominee. He's got a lot hanging over his head. In the next couple of weeks, a lot of shit is going to come down on top of him. It's not going to be pleasant. And for a guy that's 78 years old, I don't know how he takes it, especially one that's mentally disabled, mentally ill, and physically unfit, not to mention the fact he's stupid on top of it. So I don't think he's going to be the nominee. But if this makes you feel better, let's say he is the nominee. Now, I'm not against or worried about him being the nominee at all. I'm just looking at the facts and thinking he's not going to make it. But I'm not going to be upset if he is the nominee because, frankly, as far as I'm concerned, in terms of the election, Donald Trump being the nominee is the best possible situation. Keep in mind, Donald Trump won in 2016. He probably cheated when he did. But in 2018, 2020, 2022, any race that Donald Trump was in or people he endorsed, they all lost. When Donald Trump is the face of an election, he's going to lose. We, as Democrats, will win more, and certainly in the presidential race against Donald Trump, than anybody else. You know, that's the thing with Nikki Haley. I don't honestly think she'll be the nominee either. I can't imagine what parallel universe where the Republicans would have a female who happens to be born of immigrant parents from India. I don't see her as a viable nominee. Even if she was winning here, they'd have to figure something out. I just don't see old white Republican men agreeing to put Nikki Haley up, especially when she's talking shit about their Lord and Savior, Donald Trump. So if Donald Trump is the nominee, don't be worried. Be happy because Donald Trump doesn't have a good track record of winning anything from appeals to elections to endorsees winning elections. Everything he touches falls to shit. Everything he tries to do loses. So I don't know if that makes you feel better or not, but this is why I'm really not worried going into the election. I don't mind seeing Donald crushed by having all his money taken and being convicted of multiple felonies. That would crush just about anybody. That would take out just about anybody. And to suggest that Donald Trump is stronger than anybody else, I don't see that. I mean, he is kind of like a cockroach. He seems to survive even the most devastating things, but he's old too, and he's sick too. I just don't see how he's going to make it. If he does, don't worry about it. It'll be good because Donald Trump cannot win. He just cannot win. I have this argument with people all the time, but the polls, but this, but that. Remember, I've said this multiple times. The polls, whether they say Donald Trump will win or not, that's all contingent. It's contingent on whether he gets convicted of a crime. Because in those same polls, they've asked people, well, what happens if Donald Trump gets convicted of a felony? It's pretty clear what happens. All the support leaves Donald Trump and goes to Joe Biden because they got to pick somebody and they're not going to pick a convicted felon. It's just not going to happen. So don't worry either way. We're going to be fine either way. We just have to play this thing out, run the course, let Donald Trump be the nominee or let him get crushed. I don't care either way. Either way is going to be fine because when it's all said and done on election day in November, Donald Trump will be whining and crying and pissing and moaning and talking about how the election was fake and hoaxed and all this other stuff. But at that point, when the Republicans have taken this beating, nobody's going to be listening to him. They're going to kick him to the curb and try to figure something else out because at that point, it'll be well established that Donald Trump is a fucking losing cause. And there is nothing, no advantage anymore to be standing next to or behind Donald Trump. So, Jen, don't worry about it. It's going to be okay. Um, Nothing points to Donald Trump winning, and he's got a lot to go through between now and November. All right, we are going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. All right, last night was Super Tuesday. No one's surprised that President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump coasted to big victories by handily defeating what's left of their rivals. Biden easily defeated Representative Dean Phillips in all 15 Democratic primaries, while Trump was on track to defeat former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley in 14. Not all of them. Now, in Minnesota, Joe Biden, at last reporting, 96% reporting, he had 71% of the vote. Dean Phillips had 7.8% of the vote. Keep in mind, this is Dean Phillips' home state. He pulled a Nikki Haley, what Nikki Haley did down in South Carolina, got his ass whooped. The most disturbing thing about the Minnesota election, though, is uncommitted. We got 19% of uncommitted there. We've got some progressives, and of course, they are making a protest vote in that case. When it comes down to it, if they have to choose between Joe Biden and Donald Trump, they're not going to vote for Donald Trump. This is just to show their displeasure with Joe regarding Israel. Anyway, the states in play on Tuesday were Alabama, Alaska, Arkansas, California, Colorado, Maine, Massachusetts, Minnesota, North Carolina, Oklahoma, Tennessee, Texas, Utah, Vermont, and Virginia. The big news of the night, Nikki Haley beat Donald Trump in Vermont by 5 points, some 3,500, 4,000 votes, something like that. Not a big deal, not a lot of delegates, but it's something that's going to stick in Donald Trump's craw. He can't stand losing. He hates to be regarded as a loser, which is ironic because he is the consummate loser. Now, according to a survey released last month, 67% of Americans said they are tired of seeing the same candidates in presidential election and want someone new. Nevertheless, voters will get the same old in November. If Trump wins, he'll be the second president to serve non consecutive presidential terms and the first since Grover Cleveland defeated Benjamin Harrison in 1892. But that won't happen. So I don't even know why they bring it up. Now, of course, Trump will be campaigning while on trial because he's under indictment in 4 jurisdictions. After losing the 2020 election, he was screaming about the fake election, the hoax, and all that stuff. Well, he's going to have to somehow figure out a way to campaign while on trial. His federal cases may be delayed until after the election, not all of them. Trump is set to stand trial in New York this month on March 25th. Meanwhile, Biden has poor approval ratings, and more voters have expressed concerns about his age, 81, than Trump's 77. Don't understand that, especially when you look at Donald Trump, and he is showing all kinds of signs of diminishing cognizance. I mean, this guy is severely in trouble. He can't put words together. He makes up words. He slurs. He goes off on tangents. He just rants and raves like a wild man, like a maniac. That's who he is. I don't know why you're worried about Joe Biden when you watch somebody like Donald Trump. It's amazing to me that Republicans can say what they do about Joe Biden and totally disregard the ridiculous behavior of Donald Trump. Now, it's interesting. Donald Trump is not mentally fit to serve as president, according to a majority of Nikki Haley supporters in North Carolina. They polled a bunch of people in North Carolina that voted for Nikki Haley, and they said, I don't think he's mentally fit. Now, exit polls published by CNN showed what correspondent Manu Raju called warning signs for Trump in the Super Tuesday contest. The exit polls indicate that 66% of Haley's North Carolina voters felt that Trump was not mentally fit to serve as president. Additionally, 81% of Haley's voters in North Carolina said they would not automatically vote for Trump if he was the nominee. With about 60% of the ballots counted in North Carolina, Haley had received about 22% of the votes. Trump was expected to defeat Haley in most of the races on Super Tuesday, which he did, save for Vermont. But you see where the problem is there. The people voting for Nikki Haley are also Republicans, and if a large percentage of them think that Donald Trump is not fit to be president of the United States, therein lies a big fucking problem. He talks about unity for this country. Well, we're not even close to that, but shit, he doesn't have a unity in his own party. And without complete unanimity or unity in his party, the Republicans can't win. They need every Republican vote to vote for the nominee in order to win the presidential election. In addition to that, they need moderates and independents too. He's pretty much lost the independents, and he's lost most of the moderates as well. And now he can't even count on the full number of Republicans. You see what I mean there? When you look at it like that, how in the world does Donald Trump ever expect to win the election when he can't pull together everybody in his own party? Now, Donald Trump said something yesterday. I don't know if he was supposed to say it, but I think it's interesting. I mean, I'm not surprised he would think it. I'm not surprised he would say it. I'm just surprised he would say it out loud. We've got all these people, allegedly a bunch of young people, who are mad at Joe Biden for his handling of the Israeli Hamas war and how he supports Israel, in spite of the fact that we are allies of Israel. This is one of those times when Donald Trump should have kept his mouth shut. But it opens up an interesting question to those people that are angry with Joe Biden for his stance on Israel. Former President Donald Trump said Tuesday that Israeli forces involved in the military offensive against Palestinians have to finish the problem after months of staying silent on the violence in Gaza. They probably told him, don't talk about this shit. That's why I don't talk about it. It's a no-win situation. And a lot of young people, if they are truly mad at Joe Biden, their alternative would be Donald Trump. But guess what? What Donald Trump just said would piss them off too. So now what do? Maybe look at Joe Biden trying to get peace treaties and ceasefires and getting food to Gaza, airdrops, and that sort of thing. What is Donald Trump doing about this? Well, what does he think? He thinks Israel should finish the problem. And that's how Donald Trump talks. So, you progressives that are mad at Joe Biden, what's your option here? Do you like Donald Trump now better than Joe Biden? I don't know how you could. Brian Kilmeade and Lawrence Jones asked the GOP frontrunner if he was on board with the way Israeli forces problems. Trump said, "You had a horrible invasion that took place. That would have never happened if I was president, by the way." Yeah, it would, because you were part and parcel responsible for it. Russia talked to Iran. Iran funded and helped Hamas. Hamas attacked Israel. You know where Russia got all that information that helped them attack Israel in an unprecedented fashion? He got it from Donald Trump, motherfucker, when he was giving away military secrets to the Russians back when he was in his Oval Office shortly after he was inaugurated. Now, Hamas militants, of course, launched a deadly attack in southern Israel on October 7th, killing about 1,200 people and taking roughly 200 hostages. About half the hostages were released during a temporary ceasefire late last year. 100 of the remaining 130 hostages are estimated to be still alive. Now, of course, in retaliation, Israel launched a massive and ongoing military offensive in Gaza, killing more than 30,000 Palestinians and wounding many more, as well as displacing millions of people. Trump dodged multiple questions by the Fox and Friends host on its stances related to Israel and Gaza, and instead reiterated that the October 7th attack and Israel's retaliation would not have happened had he been president. Well, how would he have stopped that? And who believes anything he says? He's constantly lying. I mean, the fact of the matter is something we've been talking about all along. A lot of progressives want to lay the fault of this Israeli Hamas war at the feet of Joe Biden. Joe Biden didn't start this war. He's doing everything he can to temper things and calm things down. To blame it on him is absolutely ridiculous. And for Donald Trump to suggest it would have never happened if he was in office is ridiculous too. This is a war that's been ongoing for decades. We get wars that are upstart at different times, multiple wars since 1948 when Israel became a state. So the idea that Donald Trump could have stopped anything is absolutely ridiculous, unless, of course, Russia didn't believe it was necessary with Donald Trump in office. I mean, part of the reason why Russia would want to see this happen is to make Joe Biden look bad and carry the narrative and keep saying, oh, Joe Biden's handling this badly. I'm still not convinced the things that people say, well, all young people hate Joe Biden because of the Israel thing. That's bullshit. That's a Republican narrative that they're throwing out there that isn't true, like so many other things they throw out there just to create chaos and convolute the situation and just flat out lie. Now, Donald Trump went on to say they wouldn't have done it to me. I guarantee you that, he said. They did this because they have no respect for Biden, and frankly, they got soft. Yeah. What do you know about respect, Donald Trump? You have no respect for anyone, and frankly, most people don't have any respect for you. At best, Vladimir Putin, Iran, and all these other places are using you like a willful idiot. And the fact that you don't understand that is troubling in its own right. Now, President Joe Biden's unconditional support for Israel and its military offensive is beginning to cost him votes in the 2024 election. Michigan, which has one of the largest Arab and Muslim American populations, saw an unprecedented number of Democratic voters cast their primary ballot for uncommitted. It's a protest vote. That doesn't mean they're going to vote uncommitted when it comes down to November. Do you really think they're going to vote for Donald Trump? They're trying to send a message, and maybe the message has been received, but there is no way they're going to vote for Donald Trump. There's just fucking no way, especially after he said what he just said. The uncommitted movement, which has started spreading to other states, was led by voters who felt that Biden was not taking his constituents' concerns seriously about U.S. involvement in Israel's offensive. Despite the president's strong allyship with Israel, Trump would likely be the preferred candidate for the Israeli government's far right leaders, including National Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. Last month, Ben-Gvir told the Wall Street Journal that Trump would give the Israelis a a stronger backing than Biden currently does. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu essentially threw his support behind um, Trump in the 2020 election. The two leaders were close during the Trump administration, which cut Palestinians out of the negotiations over the so called Abraham Accords and supported expanding Israeli settlements in the occupied West Bank. So, you people that are voting uncommitted because you don't know if you want to vote for Joe Biden, who are you going to vote for? Donald Trump? He ain't your friend. He's going to get more Palestinian people killed or displaced. He already did that. So when you vote uncommitted, I like to know who you're going to vote for next. Maybe some of the lower echelon or third party candidates. Sorry, they have no support. You might as well just not vote because it's not going to do anything. However, after Netanyahu called Biden to congratulate him on his win in 2020, Trump began to sour on the Israeli leader. How dare you be disloyal? I threw that one in. Just days after the October 7th attack, Trump praised the Iran backed Hezbollah militant group as very smart while disparaging Netanyahu and Israeli military officials. The Republican candidate had since stayed noticeably silent on the war until Tuesday. You see what he's doing there? Oh, Hamas is really smart. Oh, but I stand by Israel. You can't get a straight answer from the motherfucker. You don't know where he stands. The only place he stands is whatever he thinks is going to put him in a better light or get him more votes. Donald Trump is a warmonger of sorts. He always talks about punch that guy or we'll bomb the shit out of him or we'll put a nuclear warhead in a fucking hurricane. That's how simplistically and simple minded Donald Trump is. Um, And if you're uncommitted because you're worried about Joe Biden, you need to worry about Donald Trump. That motherfucker is crazy and things are going to get out of hand. Whoever is the highest bidder, Hamas or Israel, they're going to get Donald Trump's support. And then it's going to be a fucking mess. If that's your option, if that's your play, well, you go ahead and do it. You won't win, but if you do, you deserve what you get. Well, we had a bit of good news. Senator Kristen Sinema of Arizona announced on Tuesday she won't be seeking reelection in November, ending months of speculation about her political future. This was probably a wise choice. There was no way she was going to win, and instead of being embarrassed and not winning the primary against Ruben Gallegos, she turned tail and ran. And that was probably a good idea. Now, in a video released by her office, Sinema complained about the death of civility and compromise in American politics. Well, that's rich coming from Sinema, who did nothing but push back against her own party. What do you think is going to happen when you do that? You did that simply so you could make money and make friends with your rich benefactors. But now you're fucked around and found out that once you step on Democratic toes and look as bad as you do, they don't like you anymore. They ain't going to vote for you. So I don't know what Christian Sinema is going to do. Hopefully she grifted enough for the rich people that they'll make her a lobbyist or give her some big cushy job doing nothing, because that's about all she's worth at this point. She went on to say the only political victories that matter these days are symbolic, attacking your opponents on cable news or social media. Compromise is a dirty word, Sinema said. I believe in my approach, but it's not what America wants right now. Really, Kristen, you're telling us you're all about compromise? I think quite the opposite is true. We couldn't get anything done with you there because you were too busy shilling for rich people. Fuck you, Christian Sinema. She goes on to say, because I chose civility. No, you didn't. Understanding, listening, working together to get stuff done. You're so full of shit, it's unbelievable. I will leave the Senate at the end of this year, she added. Now, Sinema's decision not to run for reelection means that Ruben Gallegos, a Democrat from Arizona, is now set for a one-on-one race with, now wait a minute, wait for it, election denier Carrie Lake, the likely Republican candidate in November. Now, Carrie Lake is the most broken politician, the most worthless, unelectable politician, only second to Donald Trump. She's not going to win this one, and then she'll whine and cry. The good news here is Ruben Gallegos is in the House of Representatives. And some people think that with Sinema leaving, that will help Carrie Lake. Well, she's going to need all the help she can get. This woman is in trouble with lawsuits and bad press and looking stupid, and more will come out during the campaign once it's decided that it's Gallegos against Carrie Lake. But Ruben Gallegos is actually a real Democrat. He will vote with the Democratic side. He's more progressive. So if we get Ruben Gallegos in and Kristen Sinema is gone, that's almost like getting an extra seat in the Senate because Kristen Sinema was no friend of the Democrats. Now, an open seat in Arizona creates a unique opportunity for Republicans to build a lasting Senate majority this November. This comes from Senator Steve Daines from Montana, who chairs the National Republican Senatorial Committee. He said that in a statement, with recent polling showing Kristen Sinema pulling far more Republican voters than Democratic voters, her decision to retire improves Carrie Lake's opportunity to flip this seat. Good luck with that. Carrie Lake couldn't fucking draw flies. Now, earlier public polls of a hypothetical matchup between Lake and Gallego have found Gallego leading the two candidates leaving the two candidates neck and neck with a large number of undecided voters. Lake, who is backed by former President Donald Trump, which is the death knell. How many people that he endorsed have actually won as of late? Now, she's been a very outspoken supporter of January 6th rioters, characterizing those prosecuted for their actions as political prisoners. Oh, that's going to go over well. Nobody with an above average intelligence believes that bullshit. She's also been a vocal critic of the late GOP Arizona Senator John McCain, which is not a smart thing to do in Arizona. John McCain is a hero, even though Donald Trump doesn't think he is. But she's tried to walk that back too, to no success. Now, Gallego on Tuesday invited Sinema to help him defeat Lake in November. Protecting abortion access, tackling housing affordability, securing our water supply, defending our democracy, all of this and more is what is on the line, Gallego said. That's why Democrats, independents, and Republicans alike are coming together and rejecting Carrie Lake in her dangerous positions. Sinema left the Democratic Party and became an independent in 2022. She has been fiercely criticized by some on the left for standing in the way of progressive priorities in the Senate, including a higher minimum wage, higher corporate tax rates, and the elimination of the filibuster. Those positions help to effectively sour her standing with the Democratic voters in Arizona. Her only path forward, had she chosen to run for re-election, would have been gathering enough signatures to appear on the ballot as an independent, which is very hard to do and a very risky campaign. Still, Sinema was deeply involved in crafting all the major bipartisan bills that passed in Congress in recent years, including the gun safety overhaul, the infrastructure reform, new protections for gay marriage, and improvements to the Electoral Count Act, to name a few. But it was the most recent negotiation over U.S. immigration and border policy that seemed to shake Sinema's belief in bipartisan compromise. Senate Republicans, many of whom Sinema was closest to, rejected her border bill at the last minute, leaving her fuming and now heading for the exits. She was involved in the border bill, and when it didn't pass, she got pissed off. And, I get that. It's rather a stupid move for a side that you've positioned yourself with, and they didn't give you what you wanted. They didn't give you what was right and proper. I understand your frustration, but I got to tell you this, Kristen, we are all very frustrated with you and the way you behaved in the time you've been in office. Sinema said these solutions mattered regarding her bipartisan accomplishments on Tuesday. They make an impact in the lives of everyday Americans, and this is how government should work. It has been an honor to serve Arizona for the past 20 years. Now, it's interesting that she likes this bipartisanism um, and she wants to do good work for people. You mean like not raising the minimum wage? That was helping the people. You were helping the wealthy people, the rich employers, not the people. And this is why you're going out the door, not letting the door hit you where the good Lord split you, as old soul would say. So good riddance. I'm glad she's gone. Gallegos, if there is a God, will win and we'll have a real Democrat in that seat, which will be a plus for us. And now here's a kind of disturbing story, but a kind of interesting story. Elon Musk flew to Florida Sunday to huddle with cash-strapped former President Donald Trump, facing a presidential campaign and civil court rulings adding up to more than $500 million, according to a new report. Sources told the New York Times Tuesday that Trump met with Musk, estimated to be worth $200 billion, and several other wealthy Republican donors. Please give me a $500 million. Please give me a $500 million. Now, to be perfectly honest with you, Elon Musk is dumb enough to do it. I'm sure what Elon Musk sees is if he really believes that Donald Trump can win the presidential election, that he will then own the president, which would be good for his business. And Joe Biden hasn't really been a friend of Elon Musk. So I guess conceivably he could give him the money. I don't know if it would be the money for campaigning or money for the $500 billion he owes in the lawsuit. I can't imagine even Elon Musk doing something like that. That's just throwing money away. He's not going to win the election. And if Musk is anywhere near as intelligent as people claim, he can see it. If I can see it, he can see it. Now, Musk hasn't yet tipped off whom he would favor in 2024's presidential election, but he does appear to be against a second term for Biden. Musk, who owns X, SpaceX, and Tesla, felt shafted by Biden in August of 2021 when he invited electric car companies to the White House, but left out Tesla. Now, the thing about it is we know who Elon Musk sides with. That shouldn't be hard to figure. Will Elon Musk give him the money? If he wants to piss away a $500 million, sure. And apparently he's not opposed to that, given he pissed away $20 billion in buying X. So I don't know what's going to happen here. But the fact of the matter is when you start robbing Peter to pay Paul, things ultimately fall apart. I'd be surprised if Elon Musk is going to give him everything he needs, because between uh, what he owes going on $600 million and trying to run a campaign, we're talking close to $1 billion that he's going to need to get from somebody, maybe Elon Musk. And there's really nothing to be gained for what he paid. That may not matter to him, but if he's any kind of businessman, you probably want to get on the right side of history. And in spite of all the things that you've said and done to this point, maybe just shut your mouth, sit back, and see what happens. And when Biden wins, you maybe better change your stripes and see if you can't make a friend with Biden, because that's going to be important to you for the next 4 years, assuming Tesla lasts that long. Now, Musk also aired grievances against Biden's immigration policies that have put the country's sovereignty in jeopardy, stating that Democrats are ushering in vast numbers of illegals to undermine elections. You mean the Democrats who wanted the border bill, the most stringent border bill in the history of this country? They wanted to do that, but your buddy said no. And the only reason for that is to make Joe Biden look bad. Are you really worried about the border? Or are you worried about owning a president? Go ahead, give him the money. You're going to take it in the ass again, like you did with X and like you are with Tesla. People used to say that Elon Musk was the smartest guy in the world. Boy, I haven't seen any evidence of it. No evidence of it at all. Every time he makes a move, it's a dumb one and it's a failure. Now, Musk posted on X, America will fall if it tries to absorb the world, and also accused Biden's immigration policies amount to treason. But we don't know who he's going to pick, Biden or Donald Trump. We know exactly who he's going to pick, and we know Donald Trump is down on his fucking knees begging for money from Elon Musk. We'll see if Elon Musk comes through. Now, you could probably get the money for the lawsuits if he's dumb enough to give it to him. I think if they're going to be using it for campaigning, they might have a little trouble. There are limitations to that, and you can't just give them a shitload of money and say, good luck with that, Donnie. Put it this way. If Musk wants to give him money, he's going to need some guarantees. And him winning the presidential election is nowhere near guaranteed. He's going to take some properties. He's going to do whatever the fuck he does if he gives them the money. And I just don't see him doing that. Now, the New York Times notes it remains unknown if Musk will cough up the cash. Still, it was far from clear that Mr. Musk would support Mr. Trump's presidential bid. Mr. Musk had indicated before the Republican nominating contest that he was leaning toward backing Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, if after saying that, Donald Trump would have had to have been very pissed at Elon Musk. He would lash out at Elon Musk if he knew that. But apparently he's willing to set it aside to beg and plead for money. We'll see what happens with that. I'm not convinced Elon Musk is going to give him any money, or certainly not enough money. And speaking of that, as we wind down this Rational Boomer podcast, former President Trump is demanding that he be giving a do-over trial in the E. Jean Carroll defamation case. Yeah, that one's unnerving him right now because it's said that he has till this weekend, few days, 3 days, to come up with $83 million. 3 days. And then after that, next week, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer goes to the court, sets the plans in progress to start seizing properties. It's coming that close. Donald Trump better hope he got at least 83 million from Elon Musk to put up. And I'm not really worried about that, because then there's Elon Musk's money tied up. Donald Trump basically owned by Elon Musk, and he's still got $500 million he's got to come up with in a couple of weeks. Now, according to CNN's Kara Scannell, Trump argued that Judge Lewis Kaplan wrongly prohibited him from defending himself during his brief testimony, and that warrants a new trial. You have to get a fucking appeal. And if you want the appeal, you're going to have to put up the money, Don. Nice try. Cool story, bro, but it ain't going to work. In court filings made on Tuesdays, attorneys for Trump said Kaplan erred when he stopped Trump from testifying about his own state of mind and when he gave an erroneous jury instruction on the definition of common law malice. Well, those are all things you bring up in an appeal. But before you do the appeal, you got to put the money up, Donnie. You can't talk your way out of this. I know you think you're brilliant, but it ain't going to work. Trump's lawyers said the jury should have been told they needed to find that it was Trump's sole exclusive desire to harm Carol. I think that's pretty much true. He said her name and he talked specifically about her. How much more specific can you get? Now, a prior jury had already ruled Trump's liable for $5 million in damages for defamation and sexual abuse. He put that up himself. He took that money out of his pocket. He went to the seat cushions in his couch, got the $5 million and put it up because he couldn't get a bond. Now, in this second proceeding, Kaplan instructed the jury that those findings of fact were already settled and not for them to determine, and they were there to assess damages. See, that's the point. He was trying to plead his case as if he wasn't guilty or liable. But by that time, they'd already determined that he was liable. So what he was saying really had no bearing on the case. They were just trying to determine how much he was going to pay. Now, his lawyers should know that. But of course, they do whatever Donald Trump tells them, no matter how stupid it makes them look. Now, despite this, Trump and his attorneys frequently tried to dispute the facts of the case, and lawyer Alina Habba frequently clashed with Kaplan, which isn't a smart move when this motherfucker is going to decide how much you owe. Now, following all this litigation, Trump now owes $83.3 million to Carol for the second trial on top of the $5 million from the previous one. The new legal efforts come as Trump has asked Kaplan for more time to post the bond, which is due shortly. Trump asked the judge to give him 30 days after the judge rules on post-trial briefs. Carol opposed the request, saying Trump hasn't provided any evidence that he can afford the payment. The judge is weighing the request, but the judge isn't going to agree with Donald Trump. New York is very strongly tied to the money situation here. It's 30 days, you pay up, or they start seizing shit. Now, at the same time, Trump is also trying to delay the bond for $464 million in damages and interest he owes from the civil fraud case brought by Letitia James. Here's a guy that claims to have more money than God, but he's rushing around. He's trying to delay. He's taking Hail Mary shots at every fucking turn just so he doesn't have to put up the money. If he had the money, he would just do it and go on with his appeal. But somehow he wants to try to appeal it without putting up the money. As I said, nice try, but that's not going to happen in this or any other lawsuit. He's not going to get any kind of consideration from Judge Engoron either when he tries to delay that. He's tried it a few times and he's failed each time. He will continue to fail. He's running around in circles, chasing his tail because, as I said, 3 days, he's got to come up with $83.3 million in order to just appeal it. And if he doesn't come up with the money, then, as I said, E. Jean Carroll's lawyer is going to go to court to get approval to start seizing properties. This is weighing heavily on Donald Trump's head. He's pretty fucked up about it because, as I've said before, it's not just the money, it's his image. His image has always been, I've got so much money, it's crazy. I've got all this money, it's crazy. He's about to be revealed as a broke-ass bitch, and that is fucking with him like nothing else that's going on currently. All right. We are going to wrap up the Rational Boomer podcast. I want to thank you for taking the time out of your day to listen. I hope you have a great day. We'll talk to you again tomorrow.